last nerve, and you really want to get up on top of your desk and say, I quit today. And then you realize, oh, I gotta feed this kid, I gotta pay this bill, I gotta pay, and then you sit on back down. So I wanted to be able to make decisions so that my decisions weren't based on, I got bills to pay and that type of thing. And so that for me was the lighter, easier lifestyle. A lot of tiny houses will, it's less maintenance. They talk about less maintenance. It's work. Last weekend I just finished winterizing my house. There's always something to do, but the difference for me is it's my house. I'm vested in that house. I can tell you every bit of material in that house. Winterizing my house looked like me getting outside and foam board and insulation around the bottom of my house because it's built on a trailer, so when winter hits, the cold air goes up underneath it and your pipes will freeze. I did it. When I moved my house to my new location, I'm in a guy's backyard. I trenched the lines from his house to my house to run my water. I had a plumber come out and say, I can do this and it's going to be $1,800. I'm a girly girl, I already said that. But $1,800, I can keep that in my pocket and I'm going to rent a trencher for $250 and I'll do it myself. But it feels a lot different because it's mine and I know it was done right and that is important to me. So yes, it's decreased maintenance, but there's some work associated with it, but it feels a lot different because it's my work and it's for my greater good. There's so many reasons that people, different reasons that people go tiny. For me, the lighter lifestyle to be able to travel. I don't necessarily travel with my house, but I always say my house allows me to travel. The lower finances and the lower expenses. And I work from home, the ability to, make a decision at the last minute. And that's really what I wanted to be able to do. Make decisions based on what I wanted to do. A lot of times, I'm one of those people that if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I didn't realize that there were so many people who didn't know how to get to go. Excuse me, braces. I didn't realize there were so many people who didn't know how to get to go. If I put it out there that I'm going to do it, I most likely am going to do it. So a lot of people come to me and it's like, well, how did you get to this dream? I went over from moving from my 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. When I moved to Charlotte, I moved into a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo. Again, I didn't buy it, I was renting. I hovered around the 3-bedroom, 3-bath for a while my daughter was in undergrad, so she'd have a place to come home, and it still felt like home for her. When she finished undergrad, she went to Harvard. At that point, I was like, you don't have to come back anymore. You should be good. I moved from the 3-bedroom, 3-bath to a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, just so she could have a space. But when I was leaving that 2-bedroom, 2-bath, I was like, you take everything that you want. I'm donating some furniture to you. And you always have to, you feel like you need to have that guest room and you want to have the guest bathroom and most of the time it stays empty, but just in case somebody is coming, you want to have that space. What I realized, I'm one of those people, my mother says you can eat off of my floor. I'm one of those people that my house is going to be clean. My bathroom is going to be clean. So I really don't need this other bedroom and this extra bathroom. So you can use my bathroom. And if you're asking to stay with me, you might want to be okay with sleeping on this couch. Or I can direct you into the area of some hotels. My daughter didn't like it one little bit. She was trying to tell me about everybody's mother who they still had their bedroom and their furniture and all that kind of stuff. I'm that chick that says you can go stay with them. But if you've gone to Harvard and so if something happens and she has to come stay with me, she'll be in the other loft, trust. I do take care of my child. But if you graduate from Harvard, I don't really expect to see you in my house. That's just it. But going from the dream of it, so I had 10 years of downsizing. I recommend, I hear people talk about the downsizing being so hard. When I got ready to sell my house here in Atlanta, I had filled my 2-car garage with stuff. Stuff to be donated, stuff to be thrown out. stuff that had come out of the attic, stuff that had come out of the closet. What I recommend is, don't look. As long as you know it's not important papers that need to be, that you need to do something with, if you haven't used it in 10 years and you're just bringing it out of the attic, you really don't need it. When you start looking, is when you start pulling stuff out. Oh, I need that. I'm like,
Yep.
Oh, I remember when so-and-so gave me that. I'm going to take it out. And before you know it, you're moving stuff out of that box and you're putting it in a box over here. So I cleaned, that was the start of my downsizing process. I did have 10 years to do it. I'm not the shamer. I will say I live in a tiny house. I also have a storage because I'm the Pier 1 World Market person. I have beautiful bedroom furniture. I have some nice stuff, but I pared down because I eventually got to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. So this is the stuff that I absolutely adore, and I'm the person that feels like you get to dream a new dream. So at any point that I change my mind and I don't want to be tiny, I'm going to want that stuff. But what I save in lot rental, from the places that I've lived, I can afford $100 storage, and I'm still saving. Right. And so I'm not the person that says that you have to get rid of everything, but I don't have unnecessary stuff. And every time I go into that storage, I'm looking at stuff that's like, no, I'm not going to need that. So I'm paring down the storage as I go in there. Downsizing is, if you know my tiny house, there are things that, when I was designing my tiny house, there were things from my large house that I knew was part of home for me. And I wanted to make sure that it was going to be part of my tiny house, so that my tiny house would always be home. Right. An example, I've got a little guy, his name is Mandela, it's a statue. He's been at my front door ever since I got a divorce. My nieces and nephews used to say, that's Auntie's husband. Auntie's husband is at the front door in my tiny house. It's been home for me. He's always been part of my home. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't going from home and what I'm accustomed to something strange. So my tiny house is home for me. So getting to the point of the light bulb and the dream, it's a good idea. I'm thinking I want to do this, to how do you actually execute. I'm not going to go through all of the part of dreams or following your dreams. Not a shameless plug, but the presentation is on my website if you want to hear the entire thing. But I'll just point out some of the things that for me are really key in following your dreams and living the dream. So due diligence. That was key for me in building my tiny house. I put in 1.5 years of research before I even really got to design. I'm a project manager by trade, I'm a project manager by mind, that's the way I work. I need to know everything about everything, and I was managing my own build. So I wanted to know, how do you build on the trailer? How do you insulate the trailer? How does the plumbing work? How does the electrical work? I wanted to know all of this, and because I was building a couple of years ago, and I decided I was using a general contractor, I needed to be the subject matter expert on my build. So my due diligence at that point was research. And I put in, like I said, 1.5 years worth of knowing everything there was to know about my dream. How that pays off is working with a general contractor, and of course, most general contractors will say, oh yeah, I know how to do that. Building a tiny house is really different from building a standard house. What I needed to know, I had it, and I had to execute to make sure he didn't screw up my dream. Because there were a lot of things that he wasn't aware of in doing the talking, yeah, I can do that, yeah, I can do that. But my research showed otherwise. What the plan that you have isn't what needs to be done. And it was important to me, because it's my dream, to make sure it was executed correctly. Right. So due diligence, whatever your dream is, it's important to put in some work. Either it's your research, your physical work, whatever it is that needs to go into making sure that your dream is going to happen. What you'll know will happen is somebody will take it and execute as their vision, and they've missed completely what you had in mind. So due diligence is really important. There were also times when I was on site, and because oftentimes contractors feel like they know better than you. And I had to, kind of put my foot down. And, I know my research. I put in the work. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's do it this way. I always have, even with being in my house for 2.5 years, I'll call a contractor, because contractors, it's a different, tiny house living is different. And so I'll call a contractor and I'll say, well, I need to do so and so and so and so, and they'll say, that can't be done. Like, dude, I know, I've already done it. I just need you to execute. We've done this before, this is a new spot, we're just doing it here again. And then, you know, you kind of, because I've put in the work to know what I'm talking about, then I have to sometimes talk them through and say, oh, yeah, I knew what I was talking about. So that due diligence, whatever it is, make sure that you're putting in the work to sustain your dream. If we look at the R in dreams, for me, the bigger one here is resilience. There were, without getting into the weeds of my build, I've likened it to being a single parent. We started building in March, and my house was finished the end of May, and I've likened my build to being a single parent in 3 months. Just raising my child from birth to grown to 18 in the matter of 3 months. It was stressful. There were often times where you kind of allow somebody to make you think you don't know what you know. And when you're on site and you've got things that are happening, so I had the bright idea to reach out to HGTV. So that added a little bit of stress when we hit and filming and we were going to be on a show. So you know you want stuff to look good on a show. We had some drama behind the scenes. My builder and I, we did not work well together. We had some personality conflict. The last thing I wanted was that to play out on the screen. I'm sure you know that everybody says don't air your dirty laundry. I didn't want to be the reality TV show and it's like, oh, they had drama. But behind the scenes, I was mitigating a lot because we just didn't work well together. The bonus was he had a great team that I was able to work with. The bonus was that I had done my due diligence, so I knew how I needed to manage my build to make sure it happened as it was supposed to be. But resilience, there was time when I built, there weren't, as I mentioned, the luxury homes to compare to. So I really underestimated my build. My build ended up costing about twice what I thought it was going to cost me. There were times I wanted to quit. You know, my builder is stressing me out, and I'm sure I'm stressing him out, just in fairness. I'm over budget. It was tough. But the good part for me is I've gotten the resources, and I'm not going into a lot of detail of resources, but I've got a great circle of friends. And none of them really understood what I was talking about when I said I was going to build a tiny house. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. But they were right there with me. And then as it started coming to form, a lot of my friends can sell a tiny house better than I can. You know, well, you need to go to her website. But they didn't understand it when it started happening, and then when I started being stressed out, they were right there with me. I said I was over budget by about half. I was ready to call HGTV. I had tapped out. I was done. And I made peace with calling to quit to say, look, I can't keep doing this. I need to regroup and pull my money back together and make this happen in a longer time frame. I need to stretch this out. And my friends were like, nope, we got you. We got you. And my friends pushed me through financially, emotionally, spiritually. So resources, so surround yourself with some great resources, and that's how you push your dreams through. And then your resilience. There'll be times where you really want to give up, and then your friends push you back up, and then you're like, okay, I'm in it. I'm back. I'm back. So that's part of following your dream. The main word for me in the E of dreams is to envision it. I showed you the house that I lived in Lawrenceville. When I decided that I wanted to live in that house, every afternoon I'd ride through the neighborhood and look at that house. I'd get out, I'd not walk and look around, I'd peep in the windows. And my daughter would be like, are we going over there again? I'm like, yeah, we're going over there again. I had envisioned myself living in that house. I envisioned myself taking a bath in that tub that was in the window. I ended up owning that house. When my sister and a friend of mine I sketched out my tiny house, how I wanted it to flow. My sister is an interior designer, so I had the blessing of her being on my team. So from my sketch, and it was a crude sketch, she took it to plans. And then I wanted my tiny house to not only work in the inside, but I also wanted it to have some appeal on the outside. So that was key, and she was key in that process in helping the window placement and pulling it all together. And then we had my friend Jamie, who was the SketchUp queen. And once we got the plans put together and I had an architect review them, Jamie then took it to 3D. And I'm the visual person. I don't know if any of you have used SketchUp, but SketchUp is really one of the cool, you can see all types of views of a dwelling. And so I, again, was able to envision myself in my tiny house. And I should have included a picture of my SketchUp. But I have known from day one, once we got the plan together for my tiny house from SketchUp, exactly what my tiny house was going to look like. And I envisioned myself living in that space, which is one of the reasons why my due diligence was so important, because before I handed my plans over to my builder, I already knew what was supposed to come out of that build. And there was no way I was going to let him mess that up for me. So I had the due diligence, and I envisioned it. And my tiny house is absolutely what my initial vision was, and like I said, I could see myself living in that tiny house, and I live in that tiny house. Envisioning your dreams is so important, because if you don't, it's like manifesting. If you don't put it out in the atmosphere, it's not going to happen. And that's real. You know, speaking stuff into existence is important. The A word for me in dreams that's so important is asking. Ask. I'm not the person that likes to ask for help. I'm usually the person that someone is asking for help. My tiny house changed all of that. Because when I tapped out, I had to ask for help. And there's a vulnerability associated with that. And if you're not used to asking for help, you know, it doesn't feel comfortable. You know, it's like, But then what I learned is that because I've got my resources, I've got my people that are behind me, and I've been a good friend to them, and when they've needed, I've been there. They were right there. What do you need? If I put out a message on Facebook, it gets shared. You know, I get a text message. Oh, we're on it. We're looking for that. You know, what do you need? So asking was tough, but it was the only way. You know, they say closed mouth doesn't get fed. If you're not asking, so the ask doesn't always look like money. Sometimes it looks like time. Sometimes it looks like a listening ear. There are a lot of things, you know, a shoulder to cry on, somebody to hear me, listen to me cuss, you know, because stuff in the background, just to allow, you know, to allow me to vent. Asking was a big part of my build. Oftentimes, like when I first started my build, and we were going to be on HGTV, I needed to build indoors. Because we started we were supposed to start around December. We didn't get started until March. But with the filming, I didn't have the ability to allow weather to keep us down. So I needed to build indoors. When I first said that I needed a location, it went out like wildfire. You know, people were sharing it. We know this person, we know this person. And that is really the way my build went, with asking and learning to ask, because I'm the doer, I'm the project manager, I'm usually the one to make it happen. So sometimes you have to step out of that and ask. The M for me is, there are two things here. And marinade, you can say it's really not a word, but what I mean when I say marinade, one of the things, and I didn't do a good job of this with my build. I didn't do a good job of this with my build. I had, again, a year and a half worth of research into my tiny house and just knowing what it was going to be like. But getting into the build and that stressful part of it, I was just ready for it to be over with. And I have been looking forward to this. In hindsight, what I would say is stop and breathe it in and take time to celebrate your successes, because there were so many successes along the way while I was wishing it to be over. But there was so much good happening. You know, when I go in the first day I went, and we had the siding up, and I had deliberated over that siding for a long time. And when it was up, and it was like, oh my God, it's beautiful. But it was like, okay, what's next? And I was on to the next thing, instead of soaking in each part of my build and really realizing that this dream is happening. So allow yourself to marinate in your successes and take time to say, okay, I'm good, I'm doing a good job, this is really happening. You know, pat yourself on the back instead of pushing through because, you know, stress might happen or your finances might not be happening the way it's supposed to. allow yourself to celebrate your successes, and even if you gotta kind of stand in it and sit for a while and figure out the next step, that's the way to do it versus pushing through when things aren't going exactly right. Then also another M word is the motivation and your magic. Whatever your support system looks like, if it's God, if it's whatever it is for you, allow that to push you through. Let that be your motivation. Make sure you center yourself so that you're focused on your dreams and you're using your spiritual energy to keep you pushed through in following your dreams, and you're staying centered. And then the S, and so the support system, it's almost the same as your resources, and resources and your support system are kind of interchangeable. In building my tiny house, you know, I had my crew of people who, no matter what I do, as long as it's not illegal, they're going to support me. And, you know, whatever it is, they're behind me. But what I also needed was people who were building tiny houses so that I could run things by them and get some feedback. So my crew is going to support me, whatever I needed to do. But sometimes you need an ear that really understands what you're doing and can relate and you can bounce stuff off of, so that you're not reinventing the wheel. You know, they can support you and it makes sense. You know, because when stuff got tough, some of my friends were like, "Well, girl, go back to your apartment. You know, you can stay in your apartment. You don't have to build this tiny house." Your support system, who might be doing the same thing and following your same journey, is going to say, "Girl, stick it out. You know, this is what you can do, you know, because I'm stuck right now. This is what you can do. Let's do it this way. Let's think about it this way." And they'll help hold you into following that dream, where your resources, really they're caring about you, and they don't want to see you going through this stress, so they might say, "Abort. Let's get this dream and move on to something else." And your support system and people who are going through it are going to say, "Hey, let's stay and hold this, and you're going to be okay. We can do something a little different." And the support system for me has been key in my tiny house living, because some of the things that happen to you as you live in a tiny house, it's almost unreal. You know, when I open my blinds and there are people out there just, you know, kind of want to take pictures and want to know, can we come in your house? And I had a lady tell me, I was trying to explain to her, you know, she was like, "I'm a good person. I just want to see your house." It's like, "Lady, I'm sure you are a good person, but today you cannot come in my house. You know, I just looked out and you're out here. No, we're not doing that today." And it's a lot different. You know, the people. A lot of times people, when I say I live in a tiny house, you know, they'll look at me, "Were you having hard times?" So, no, I had a plan. So there's some weirdness associated with tiny house people, and I don't think I'm weird, but of course I might be. You know, it's like what they say, when you're stupid, you never know you're stupid, but everybody else knows it. So I might really be weird, and I just haven't owned up to it yet. But that's, as people who are, you know, the meetups and the groups where other people are going through some of the same things and having some of the same conversations, where your family is like, "There she is talking about that tiny house stuff again." You know, those are the people that help you, to help you move your dream along. People who are, and even if it's not tiny houses, people who can relate to whatever the dream is that you're planning to follow, that can help you stay the course. In hindsight, so this is always the question, in hindsight, what would you do differently? And I want you to read this quote, because we're going to talk about some serious things in a minute. So, "Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but foresight is better, especially when it comes to saving life or some pain." And I'll kind of talk more about that. So in